All right, lesson 8. We have the third Niyama here. It's called Tapas. Tapas in Spanish means some delicious side dishes when you drink wine. But this is actually the opposite. Tapas is the practice of austerity, as we call it. It is the yoga way of doing maintenance to your physical body. In yoga, as mentioned a couple of times before, everything is energy, and energy is our most precious asset. Without good quality and quantity of energy, we don't function well. And that applies to the mental functioning as well as physical functioning. And of course, the main goal of yoga is the functioning of the spiritual body. So energy is everything. It is the most important. Without it, nothing works. Now, ancient people didn't have the benefit of all the technology that we have these days. So they were always physically busy to perform the functions of life. If you're doing laundry, then you do that manually, you do that by hand. It's a lot of hard work. Kneading dough, there were no dough machines in the past that did all the hard work for you. This is really hard work. Working in the field, there were no tractors for farmers to help them in the hard work of growing crops. And if you wanted to travel, you had to walk. There were no airplanes, trains, buses, and cars. So every journey was done on foot and took days and sometimes weeks to complete. So physically, people were very rugged, very strong by default. We now live in a time that we have all the luxury. We can stay alive, we can perform all the tasks, all the chores without any physical activity, just by pushing buttons. We take the elevator to go upstairs to a higher floor. We take the car to go to the supermarket or anywhere we go, airplanes, trains, other means of transportation that we just have to sit and wait to arrive at the destination. To do the laundry, we push a button. After putting the clothes into the washing machine and adding some detergent, just push a button and it will do all the hard work. What happens is the following. According to ancient scriptures, not only in yoga but also in other philosophies and religions, the human being in the first place is spirit. And spirit is pure energy. There's no manifestation of energy into physical matter yet. But when a spirit descends into a physical body and therefore manifests as human beings like you and me are manifesting, we are limited by that. The spirit is limited by that physical body, and the physical body deteriorates if it is not taken care of properly. We get sick, we become depressed, our health starts to fail. With that, the spirit ceases to exist, ceases to function. There's no spirit to speak of. And we fall apart. The final stage of this process is, of course, death. So, austerity in yoga in the first place is, of course, practicing asana. And you can see it in this way. The practice of austerity means to subject yourself to discomfort in order to be more comfortable. You subject yourself to discomfort in order to gain strength. And strength equals energy, which is our most important and most precious asset. We concluded before already that people who get sick, they get sick in the first place because there is something wrong in the energy household. So if you take care of your energy household, it is much less likely that you get sick. So, austerity, there are people who naturally practice austerity because instinctively they feel the need. They don't feel good when they don't exercise. So, there are people who naturally, instinctively feel the need to go to the gym and work out, or to ride a bicycle on the riverside or in the park, or go hiking up and down the mountain. But there are also many people who don't like exercising because it takes effort. And if you don't have the discipline to exercise, people who like exercising because it gives them a sense of euphoria. Exercising leads to the production of certain hormones that make us feel good. But if you are not used to that, you don't want to do all that effort of exercising because it's bothersome, it's tiresome, it takes time, you have to arrange the time and the place, and you have to. There are sacrifices to be made, there is lots of effort that needs to be made. People who like exercising, they are willing to do that because they know how good it feels, and they know that not only while exercising but also the rest of the day and the night, they function much better. Digestion is much better, we feel more positive throughout the day, we sleep better at night, etc. So it has lots of implications, lots of positive benefits. For yoga, of course, it is important, austerity is important, because spirituality is non-existent without good amounts of good quality energy. Now, let me give you an example of my observations in society, because what I see every day is people, well, let me just give you some examples. I live in an apartment complex. It's fairly large, 24 flats, 24 apartment blocks. And I measured, because of the smartphone, everything is easy these days, I measured the distance from one end of the apartment complex to the other end of the apartment complex. And it is only 500 meters. It looks much bigger, but In reality, it's only 500 meters, half a kilometer. I live in flat number 1, which is in front. And in front, there is also the maintenance office. The central heating is controlled from there. The kettles that provide hot water and heat for the houses is there. So all the maintenance is there. The administration of the apartment complex is there. But also, there are 2 kindergartens, one in the maintenance building and the other one in the church next door. So there's also a church in front of my building. And what I see is people coming to church and people dropping off their children at the kindergarten by car. And then I look at the front window and I see that there is a sticker of our apartment. Because in Korea, every apartment has their own sticker. If you don't have a sticker, then the Kyongbi Ajoshi will put a sticker on your car that you're not allowed to park there. So everybody has a sticker of their own apartment. Which means people who live within 500 meters of the church and the kindergarten, they step into their car, they drive around the block to drop off their child or to go to church. From the point of view of the practice of austerity, of course, wouldn't it be better to walk? Use your legs, use your body. Because ironically, those people, after dropping off their children, they often go to the gym to exercise. They could have exercised walking to the kindergarten or the church. And also, children, they take an example from their parents. So, wouldn't it also be a lot better to walk the children to school so that they develop a healthy habit of walking to places rather than step into a car to just go a distance less than 500 meters to go somewhere? It's about common sense. I see people who live on the 3rd floor who take the elevator. Isn't it a lot healthier to just walk up the stairs and down the stairs? Some people do, some of the neighbors do. Most people, they take the elevator. I've always seen these kind of activities as an opportunity to stay fit, other than going to the gym. And I've worked at the World Gym for 8 years. I had my yoga studio there, and I knew a lot of people who exercised there, of course, members, and I know people from the neighborhood. Now, you know Richensia? So Richensia, if you take the shortcut, there's only 200 meters from World Gym. If you go by car, you have to go around Yuksam building, 63 building, but then still, it's less than 600-700 meters. So I know people, just like in the neighborhood in the apartment, there are people who live in Richensia who go down the basement to the parking lot, step into their car, drive around 63 building, 700 meters, go to the basement of the World Gym, take the elevator to the 3rd floor to exercise. And then I think, why don't you walk? You walk to the gym is a nice warm-up. And not only walk to the gym, but then take the stairs to the 3rd floor, to the front desk, and then start your exercise. If you walk from Richensia to the gym, and then you walk up the stairs, you're warmed up already. No need for a warm-up on the gym floor. Common sense. Why do you go to the gym? To be healthy. So why not walk? because that too makes you healthy. That is practice of austerity. Austerity also means to deal with difficult and uncomfortable situations while staying calm and controlled. So we see the concept of the previous subject, contentment, basically integrated into the practice of austerity. Because austerity is kind of an extension of the practice of contentment. That means that when you're dealing with difficult situations, when people freak out, when they are confronted with difficult situations, they lose a lot of energy. And as we concluded in the previous subject, it blocks the energy and keeps us away from figuring out a constructive way to dealing with the problem, to solve the problem. Now, very interestingly, and you have done the first and the second semester of the advanced course, so you know the mudras. The mudras are a higher form of energy control that are more sophisticated than the pranayama exercises. They're actually based on the principle of staying calm and controlled while putting yourself in a very difficult position. And actually, you can already see this principle in asana. Many people, when they exercise, they strain themselves to a very high extent. And when it gets really hard, they grind their teeth, they clench their jaws, and they will say something like, no pain, no gain. And they push a little bit more, and they push a little bit harder, and they hold their breath. In yoga, we know, of course it's healthy to exercise, and it's healthy to push yourself sometimes to a certain limit. But the yoga way to deal with pushing yourself to the limit in exercise or other situations, daily life situations, is actually not by straining ourselves, but to do the opposite. And you already practice that when you do asana. That is why we learned the yamas first. When you do asana, you do that in a different way than you exercise in the gym. Instead of clenching your jaws and saying things like, no pain, no gain, you say, you put yourself in a difficult posture, strain, and you maintain a calm and controlled attitude. As a result of that, your energy keeps circulating freely, your mind keeps functioning properly, and you're much more observing. You notice when the asana has fulfilled its purpose, and you can also feel in that observing mode, you can feel that it's starting to work in the opposite direction if you force yourself to stay in the pose, while you, on a deeper level, on a more subtle level, feel that it's already over. It has fulfilled its purpose. We're talking about sattva, of course. The purpose of asana is austerity, strength, generating energy, but in a very measured and balanced way. Because if we approach asana in the way that we approach exercise in the gym, we overshoot the goal. We do physically get stronger, but our energy becomes very restless and scattered all over the place, which makes it impossible to then sit down and meditate. So asana is designed in such a way that you strain yourself, but in a very sensible way. And as a result of that, it leads to sattva, which is then the preparation for the meditation. And that's only possible if you stay calm and controlled. It's about attitude. Now, it may sound funny, but the higher forms of energy control in yoga, mudra in particular, but basically the whole idea of yoga on a higher level is really about staying calm and controlled mentally in whatever situation that you find yourself in. And this has many repercussions in a positive way, in that you maintain your peace of mind rather than freaking out or becoming very uncomfortable, stressed. But also it allows you to maintain oversight. It allows you to remain connected with whatever it is that you're dealing with the essence of what you are dealing with. So as a result, you'll be much more effective in dealing with situations, whether that is in daily life, at work, in relationships. You're just much more effective in dealing with situations as a result of such an attitude. Austerity is something that sometimes is taken too far, to extremes. You see on page 1, the illustration of a fakir, that is the yogi sitting there. He's very slender, or emaciated actually. You can see all his ribs. He's basically, well, let me explain what fakirs are. Fakirs are people who renounce all the comfort and pleasure of the world, basically. They live in their own secluded communities. In India, they still exist, and they usually live in communities withdrawn in the forest or in the mountains, far away from modern society. And the first thing they do when they join the community of fakirs, or ascets, as they are also called. Ascet is more a word used in religion, in Christianity. But the first thing they do is they throw off their clothes, and all they wear is a loincloth. Then they drink only pure water, and they eat only roots and just the bare minimum of what they need to keep alive. So no luxury, no cooking, very, very basic. Now, there is a story of the Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, who actually joined the community of fakirs when he felt that Gautama the Buddha was a prince. He was born in a royal family. But since he was born, he had a leaning towards spirituality. Some people are born like that. I was born like that. I always had a leaning towards spirituality. So Buddha was born with a tendency towards spirituality, but the luxury and the comfort of the palace gave him a feeling that his spirituality was not allowed to manifest. So the story goes, the anecdote goes, that the night before he was supposed to marry in an arranged marriage with a princess from another royal family, he left the royal palace through an underground passageway leading him out of the palace. He left the palace and joined the fakir community in a forest nearby. So story goes, he threw off his clothes, and for the next 6 years he lived with them in super austere ways in order to find God or to find spirituality, to allow his spiritual leanings to manifest. After 6 years, he started to really struggle. The super austere way of living in the fakir community led to all kinds of health problems, mental problems like depression. His heart started to fail. Other organs also started to become sensitive and painful. So he realized that if he would continue on this path, that he would end up dying. He felt that he was dying after 6 years living with the fakir community. So, having fled the palace, the luxury and the comfort of the royal palace, thinking that living with the fakirs in super austere ways was the answer to his quest for spirituality, he came to the conclusion that was also not the answer. So he left the fakir community, and the story goes that the moment that he walked out of the forest, he came across a goat. He milked the goat and he drank the milk from that goat, and that were his first steps towards healing himself. It is then that he ended up sitting under the tree, the famous Buddha tree, where he developed the philosophy that in the end, left is not good, right is not good, the answer is in the middle. And it's now called the golden mean of the Buddha. So the extreme luxury and comfort of the palace killed his spirit. The extreme austerity with the fakirs killed his body. In the end, his conclusion was, it should be both. We need both. We need austerity, but if you push it too far, you kill yourself. We need a certain level of comfort, stability, because otherwise you cannot thrive spiritually. We need both. And that is the balance that we try to seek in our lives. And in the end, everything comes down to this balance between left and right, the golden mean of the Buddha. And that's how he ended up sitting under the Buddha tree that apparently still exists, or at least an offshoot of that Buddha tree has been kept alive in India, with a big belly and a big smile on his face, being very content. Extreme austerity you can find in, you like exercising a lot. There are people who do a marathon running, but a full marathon is 42 kilometers. So that is quite extreme. Most normal people will simply not be able to do that. And if you want to pursue to run a full marathon, it often takes a long time of preparation. There is also something like a triathlon that is more extreme than a marathon, because it's not only 42 kilometers of running, there's also 200 kilometers of cycling, and I don't know, there's swimming involved. I don't know how long the distance is, but it is quite a long distance of swimming, as you can guess. And that in itself is really quite extreme. People need that extreme kind of approach because of the challenge. It makes them good, it makes them feel good to be able to overcome. So it is austerity, not only physically but mentally. The more exhausted you become, the more mentally challenged you become. It's mentally very challenging to hang in there and complete the triathlon. But now you have something even more extreme. It's called Ironman. An Ironman is like a triple triathlon. So you run 120 kilometers, you cycle 600 kilometers, and you swim for hours and hours in the sea. Often it's in the ocean. It's just mind-boggling. And it stretches out over more than a couple of days. And they are allowed to sleep, very short sleeps. I don't know how you call that in English. In Dutch we call it hair sleeps. It's just 10, 15 minutes of sleep, and then you have to continue again. When people are interviewed towards the end of, or at the end of the triathlon, they're completely wasted, completely worn out. Terrible pain in their hips, knees, ankles. The suffering is really bad, but somehow it gives them a good feeling to be able to withstand. From our point of view, this is not really very constructive, because we want a holistic approach to the practice of austerity so that it helps us in our pursuit of spirituality. And extreme sports like the triathlon, Ironman triathlon, triple, quadruple triathlon, maybe at some stage you feel the need to pursue something like that, just to have tried it and see how far you can go. But in the end, like the Buddha, you have to find somewhere in the middle. Challenge yourself, have the discipline to get out of the comfort zone, but don't push it too far, because then it starts to work against you. And some people literally drop dead during a triathlon, or even worse with the Ironman event. Everybody has to determine for themselves how to fill in the practice of austerity. Everybody will have their own personal needs, and when delving a little bit deeper into the motives for people to engage in such extreme activities, there's often a story behind trauma that they try to find healing from in such extreme events. It's not your everyday kind of people that usually engage in these kind of extreme sports. So follow your feeling, experiment, try out, and know when to stop, especially. And if you don't know how to determine when to stop, have a look at the yamas, especially non-violence comes into play. But also, if you demand too much from yourself to the point that it is harming you, technically you commit theft on yourself, and you're also committing lies on yourself. You're lying to yourself, denying the reality of what you can reasonably handle. So the yamas are really a guideline to help you determine when you go too far or not. All right. Questions? No? Okay, let's have a short break.